Good morning. Hello, my name is Amy Westfall. I'm the Director of Admissions here at the Cooper Union, and on behalf of the entire Enrollment Services team, I'd like to welcome you to this historic Great Hall and to the School of Architecture's open house. Today, you're going to hear from staff, faculty, and current students. Hopefully, what you'll hear will send a message to you about how special our community is and what makes us unique. And then we will be followed by a student and faculty panel, and we will tour the facilities, the studio space upstairs, and conclude with a reception where I hope we can all mingle and talk more. A couple general housekeeping notes. The Great Hall here can be a bit cavernous, and maybe your phone isn't working, so we do have Wi-Fi instructions if you need it. And then another thing I just wanted to mention really quick is students, when you picked up your name tag today, there will be a little sticker in the upper left-hand corner, either an A or a B. So just take note of what that is, because at the end of the program, we're going to break you into tour groups that are specific to that letter. Okay? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our acting dean in the School of Architecture, Ben Aranda.
Nice to meet you. I'm not sure that's the best. Can we have the slideshow that was going previously? Just because it kind of shows the work of the school. Might be a nice backdrop. Hi, my name is Benjamin Aranda. I am the current acting dean of the School of Architecture, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the open house. The School of Architecture here is an exceptional intellectual and creative environment. We are dedicated to the investigation and making of architecture in its broadest social, political, environmental, and artistic contexts. As all of you may know, although some of you will learn shortly, to get into this school, you have to take what's called a studio test. And we see it as a really important part of the application. It not only demonstrates your abilities in design and creative thinking, but it also shows us your interest and dedication in becoming part of our community. Some of the faculty also joke that it's the studio test that demonstrates the work that we need to undo or have you unlearn. I urge you to absorb yourself in these questions, because it gives you an insight into our rigorous professional curriculum and shows how you might think broadly and deeply about what we do here at the school. So about what we do, we are a liberal arts program, and we explore architecture as a discipline with a rich history and language and methods all to its own. And we look at that within wider contexts and impacts. We continue to be recognized as an exemplary school. We have an international reputation. We are proud to be small and mighty, as you might hear us say. Our student breakdown is currently 129 undergraduate students and 21 graduate. So there are two programs, the BArch, Bachelor of Architecture, and the MS Arch. So we have a really tight, small core body of students of about 150. During the summer, we expand that with the summer school online. So that's a virtual program that allows us to admit about the same number of students, about 150 students in our summer program. We have a lot to be proud of. Our faculty here that you'll hear from is incredible. We're fortunate enough to attract really the best and brightest in the discipline. And we just hired a brilliant new history and theory faculty member, Irene Chang, who's going to start in the spring. And we have an active dean search currently underway. And we are going to likely finish that dean search in the coming weeks. So we're really excited with that announcement. We recently secured our NAB accreditation, which is a big deal for any professional school. And that was a huge effort. A lot of credit due to our Associate Dean, Marcia Veladar, who you'll hear from as well. And we also have some incredible partnerships in the city. So we're in New York City. There's a lot of amazing stuff going on here. And we have relationships with some key institutions like Storefront for Art and Architecture, A83 Gallery, Museum of Modern Art, the Cooper Museum of Arts and Design, the Architectural League. We here at the Cooper Union are cementing our status as a kind of cultural nexus of institutions here in New York, and really a kind of center of architectural culture. More broadly, I would say that it's an incredible time to study architecture. Half of humanity is making life in cities today. Climate change is affecting that viability of urban and rural settlements around the globe, and there is increasingly strain on this fragile balance of our ecosystems. In addition to this, the very fiber of our democracy and governance is being challenged, making the building of policy and its subsequent impact on the physical environment a difficult but very important project. All of this is happening while advances in automation and computation are raising alarms about the kind of work that lies ahead for us in an era where we have to live with this thing that people are calling AI. We continue to tackle the AI issue here at the school and have been blazing trails with teaching machine learning and algorithmic design for quite some time. But we do continually monitor and discuss how these technologies have consequences to academia and to the discipline at large. And this really relates very broadly to our expanded coursework, which really emphasizes interdisciplinarity with the other schools in the school, which are the School of Engineering and the School of Art, and we have a humanities school as well. I often ask this question, and you might hear me ask some of you this, what is the general feeling out there in the world? And I think we can all share that there's really a feeling of exhaustion happening right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But we really think about how the school can meet this moment. What is the core mission of a school? And what is it that makes a school really a school? We believe that the school must be a space of collective support, a fundamental and unique space, very different from other kind of spaces out there, that allow for debate and indeed allow for a difference of opinion. That allowing for difference is actually really the first way that you create a collective body. And the Cooper Union can claim a very rich history in this across its foundational story of Peter Cooper, who you might have heard about, up on the walls around us. And a lot of the historical moments that he orchestrated and that came after him happened in this room that we're in right now. So this is the Great Hall. Abraham Lincoln's Might Makes Right speech was delivered here. The woman's right to vote was really galvanized here. Suffragist Susan B. Anthony wrote here. And early claims for autonomy by indigenous communities were established here. Chief Red Cloud gave a strong and impassioned speech here, as well as many others. It's the room that we're in right now, the walls are rich with a history that's humbling for all of us. So, these ongoing conversations that we have here about collectivity, about academic freedom, are an important step to understanding what the Cooper Union is about fundamentally. So I look forward to meeting you here at the open house and to discussing architecture and your potential place in it here in our community. Thank you. I'm going to welcome Alex Fisher, Assistant Dean of Students, to the stage.
Thanks, Ben. And good to see everybody. Welcome to Cooper Union. Like Ben said, my name is Alex Fisher. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students here at Cooper Union. I work directly within student affairs. I oversee specifically our student care area, which is mental health and wellness here at Cooper. So I'm just going to run through quickly sort of our different areas that we have here at Cooper. I like to tell students, staff, and faculty that we help solve problems. Sometimes for our faculty and staff, we help create some of the problems because we start asking the questions. But we like to tell students to bring their problems to us if they're not sure where to go, and we'll do our very best to try to connect them, to get their questions answered, or to get them help. So within Student Affairs, we have the Center for Career Development. That office specifically works with students to help them resume prep. They offer different career fairs throughout the year. They help students prepare for interviews, getting jobs and internships. There's different paid internships that also come through their office as well. So students are obviously always told to connect with their office as soon as possible. One, to just start getting a feel for what's out there. Obviously, we have students that come here their first year and they're constantly thinking, I have to find a job today. And they really just need to take a step back, take a breath. You've only been here for a couple of days. Those things will come, but working with the Center for Career Development is always a good first place to start to try to figure out what's next. Within Student Affairs as well, we also have our International Students and Scholars Office. They work primarily with our international students, helping them secure visas and figuring out how to get to the United States, to be here to study and to remain here for their degree programs. They also offer a ton of programming throughout the year, and all students are encouraged to attend that programming, not only to meet our international students, but also to learn something new. Residential life. We have a residence hall just a block away. So on the map on the back of your program, I think it says SR. That is our only residence hall. We house about 160 first-year students here on campus. And then after their first year, students would be encouraged to figure out the apartment search process that is New York City. And we obviously offer workshops, different resources to help students through that process. But again, housing roughly about 160 students. First-year students, we have 8 resident assistants, which are upper-class students, to help guide them, to welcome them to campus, program, and those sorts of things. Like I said, I oversee student care, so that's our mental health and wellness area. I also oversee disability services, so within student care, we work to help and support students with their mental health, offering resources and support. We connect them to different resources throughout the city, throughout Cooper, and then I work primarily with students who are coming to us with academic accommodation needs, ultimately trying to help them connect to the resources that they need to be successful here at Cooper. And then our student life team really works with our student clubs and organizations, so helping students find their passions. We have several clubs here at Cooper, roughly, I would say 75 to 100. Somewhere in that neighborhood, and ultimately we're working to constantly create new clubs. And so if students come here and they find something that, or they have a passion and we don't have a club for it, we'll help them figure out how to start that club, to receive funding and those sorts of things to run that club. And hopefully other students will be interested as well. But doing tons of programs around campus, really engaging the community and welcoming them to Cooper. So that's a little bit about student affairs. I'll be here throughout the afternoon, can answer more specific questions. Thank you again, and I'd like to welcome Amy back to the mic to talk about the application process.
Hello again. Just need the application slide up. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right, so the nuts and bolts of applying, this is the good stuff, although maybe a little less glamorous. So the first step, if you're a senior, is filling out the Common App. Maybe you've already started that. It's an easy way to apply to multiple schools at once. This is for first-year applicants. If you're a transfer applicant, it's a different application through our website, okay? We need your transcripts. your letters of recommendation, so that's 1 for first year, 2 for transfer, an application fee of $75, which if that is a deterrent for you, we know they can add up. There are ways to get these waived through your school, or you can email me, and I can try to help you. And then if you have not studied in English at an English school for 3 years at the time of starting your application, we are also going to ask you for a language proficiency exam. We accept the IELTS, the TOEFL, and the Duolingo, and we have more about that, the benchmarks for those on our international student page, okay? Part 2, this is the best part, the studio test. This is so important to us. The fact that this is a long-standing tradition in the School of Architecture. The test prompts are 6 to 8 visual prompts that the faculty admissions committee is designed for you. They change every year, and you get a month to complete the prompts. In addition to the visual prompts, there are also some short answer writing prompts as well. Don't wait till the last minute to do this. This is really important to us. For first-year students, this is in lieu of a portfolio, okay? But if you're a transfer student, you're also going to be required to submit a portfolio. When will you get this? That's a big question. So once the application deadline closes, these prompts and the instructions for the test will go live in your applicant portal. And if you're wondering what the applicant portal is, once you've submitted your application, you'll receive an email from us that says, "Thank you for applying to the Cooper Union. Please set up your login credentials for your applicant portal." The applicant portal is where you will see all the required components that you need for this process. It will tell you if we have it or if we don't have it. There'll be a green check mark or a red X. So this is where you can see the status of all of your application components. This is also the place where we release our decision letters. One thing I want to mention is that sometimes when people use their high school email address to apply, the school systems have like incredible firewalls, and sometimes our emails don't get through. So I do recommend using a personal email address when you apply, or checking your spam and junk folder frequently to make sure you're not missing important emails related to this. The other thing that's really important to talk about the studio test is we have an admissions committee of faculty and students and an alumni representative and admissions person, and they all work together and go through every single application together to really construct a class. It's an amazing process. Something else that you need to be aware of is that with the studio test, it's actually a 2-step submission. Once you've completed the prompts, you're going to take really good quality photographs or scans of your test prompts and upload that to your applicant portal. And then you're also going to mail the physical version to us as well. We like to see the real work. But again, all the instructions will be in your applicant portal, so just make sure you read that carefully, okay? For any of our graduate students that are here today, we have a Master of Science in Architecture application that's online through our website. In addition, we're asking for your transcripts, letters of recommendation for the graduate program. We ask for 3, your resume and CV, a written essay, portfolio, and again, the application fee of $75. We also, again, ask for an English language proficiency test as well. Okay. The application deadlines. This is the one to take a picture of. So we have 2 rounds. We have early decision, which is coming up very soon. Early decision is if you know that Cooper is your first choice. We want people who want us. And if you want to lock it in early, this is the round for you. So the deadline for the application is December 1st, and then the studio test is going to go live about a week later on the 8th. And again, you get a month to do it. It's due back right after Christmas on January 5th. and you would have a decision by February 1st. So there's three things that can happen. We can say yes, we can say no, or we can roll you over and reconsider you again in the regular decision pool, okay? Then there's regular decision. Maybe you're not sure about staying in New York, maybe you're not sure about our program, whatever you would like to do. And this is a little bit later of a round. The application is due January 5th. The studio test goes live the 12th. It's due back February 9th, and then you'll have a decision by April 1st. The graduate application is due January 5th. Okay, affordability. So our mission is to make sure that each student is not deterred from the cost associated with attending. We meet 100% of our demonstrated financial need. Every student in the undergraduate program that we admit automatically will receive a half tuition scholarship, which is valued at $22,275 a year. We also have additional merit and need-based aid available. The merit is at our discretion. There isn't anything additionally that you would need to do for that. But the need-based aid is something that's based on your FAFSA. So for those of you who are seniors, if you haven't started that yet, you really should. It should be submitted by the time your application is submitted. The reason being is if we admit you, you'll receive a financial aid award letter, and it could say that you owe the entire amount, the whole $22,275. Or if you have a FAFSA on file and you're eligible for need-based aid, it could say that you owe less. So it's important to do it early, okay? Another thing that you should know is we are on track to being tuition-free again by 2028, 2029. So that means that our merit packages are increasing every year. 100% of tuition was covered by scholarship or grant aid for 47% of our students last year, and 85% of tuition was the average scholarship amount or grant aid received. So again, at the very minimum, you're receiving the 50% scholarship. So it's an excellent package for the quality of education that you're receiving. Okay. I'm sure you might have questions about some of the things I just rattled off. There'll be a Q&A portion later, and I can circle back with you individually also at the reception. But right now, this is the fun part. We're gonna invite our faculty and student panelists up to the table. Okay, thank you.
While we get another chair, I'll start talking. So welcome everybody. My name is Michael Young. I'm an associate professor here at the Cooper Union. I've been here now 20 years. This is the 20th year for me teaching here at Cooper. What's going to happen now is we're basically going to kind of go down the line. The faculty is over here, the students are over there, even though that's how it's set up here on the stage. That's not how we live our lives here at Cooper. Everybody gets to know each other incredibly well, and we are devoted to and involved with the entire process of the education that happens at the school. So we're going to speak a little bit about what it is that we teach, what we feel is important, unique, and special about the school. We're going to say that both from the side of the faculty and the students. We'll talk a little bit about living in New York. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the Cooper Union, about what each year tries to address and tries to deal with. There'll be a brief portion at the end here for you to ask us some questions. If you don't get to ask it while we're here seated in the Great Hall, there's an informal gathering that happens after the tours, or depending on if you're Tour A or Tour B, upstairs on the 3rd floor. We'll be mingling about. Feel free to come up to any of us and ask us whatever you're thinking about and whatever questions you may have. All right, so I'm Michael Young, like I said, associate professor here. I've taught in every single studio of every single year, and I'm also currently the coordinator of the graduate program. So for those of you who are here to talk about the master's program, the graduate program, please come up to me and I'll tell you more about that as well. I also have a small architecture practice called Young and Ayala, based here in Brooklyn and also in Los Angeles. We have a number of fun projects that are happening, but the biggest one for us right now is we are designing a renovation for the library at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it starts construction tomorrow. So I'll be there tomorrow, and let's hope this all goes well. But one of the things you'll probably find, and each of our professors will introduce this, we are all architects who are involved deeply within the questions of pedagogy, what it means to teach and to train new architects and open them up to the possibilities of the environment, the design of the environment, and what we do as architects in terms of the creative possibilities of architecture in the world. This means that we all are also practicing architects, practicing theoreticians. We write, we publish, we exhibit, we build. And this is kind of a crucial thing that goes through the architectural education here. We are involved in the world, and that world is the Cooper Union, New York City, but also much larger and broader and complex. And it's a necessary component to figure out the ways in which we relate to that world and how we see architecture developing a positive alternative to the ways in which we can imagine, live, and design that world together. So without further ado, we'll maybe just kind of go down the line and everybody can introduce themselves and say a little bit about who you are, where you're at, and then we'll start with some questions.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see this space, the great hall, filled with energy and anticipation. My name is Julian Palacio. I'm a design faculty here at Cooper Union. I've taught for 15 years, the last 9 here at Cooper, mainly Design 2, Design second year. Currently, I'm the coordinator for Design 3. Also teaching a really interesting class, a collaboration between Cooper Union students and the Museum of Modern Art here in New York. Maybe we'll talk more about it. Also involved in teaching the second semester of Structures 1. I also have a small practice based here in New York City, doing projects in the New York area and a few collaborations in Latin America.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ted Babb. I have been at Cooper Union for about 7 years now, and coordinated one of the first-year design studios for many years. And currently, I am coordinating the thesis studio, which is the fifth-year program that is allowing students to investigate something of their own defining. So it really is the kind of culmination of the program that allows students to investigate an area or a topic or a methodology that has come to be of interest to them over their time at Cooper. I'm also coordinating the lecture series this year with Kayla, who you'll hear from in a minute, and also have a small practice in the city focused on houses and housing. And right now working on developing a new type of small apartment building in the city.
Okay, hi everyone. It's great to see everyone here. My name is Jessica Nan. I'm an architectural historian. I teach environments and history here at Cooper Union to the second years. It's my third year teaching here. So in the environments class, we give the students an overview of really the major themes and issues in contemporary architectural practice and climate change. And there's also a more technical component that my colleague teaches. And then I also teach the history sequence, which is a 5-semester sequence. I teach in the 4th semester. I teach a history survey class of modern architecture.
Hi everyone, my name is Kayla Montes de Oca. Currently I'm teaching thesis alongside Ted. I've taught first year architectonics and third year housing. I've been at Cooper as a student for 5 years and teaching for, I think, about 3. Currently, I'm doing research on questions about affordable housing in New York City, also questions on community and neighborhoods and how we continue developing cultural heritage and what public memory is in New York City. Excited to be here with you all and to meet some of you. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Mirceja Veladar, Acting Associate Dean of the Cooper Union. I also coordinate and teach first year architectonics. It's a pleasure to see you all here today. A few of you might know me also from the summer program that I additionally teach. I should say I'm also a proud alumni of the 5-year professionally accredited Bachelor's of Architecture at the Cooper Union as well as Princeton University. I've taught and worked here for the last 20 years. I typically have taught a variety of courses, primarily in the language of architectonics, affordable housing, thesis, graduate thesis, and so on. I'm really, I would say, the most proud of the work in first year, and I'm currently working on a new upcoming publication on architectonics work of our students that's working in tandem with some of my own research and my practice, that's engaging with how neurodivergent elements can bind different cultures across the world, that hopefully will come out in a year or so. It's great to meet you all here.
Hi, I'm a second year. My name is Yang Zhang, and I'm from Brooklyn. I've been always commuting to Cooper Union, and just this summer, I was a student teacher at the architecture summer program with Professor Valadar.
Hello. My name is Eamon Dunbar. I'm a third-year architecture student from Canada, so I'm an international student. I also work with Alex Fisher in student care, and I am on student council.
Hello, I'm Angelise Heredia. I'm a fourth year. I'm currently in student council. I was previously an RA, and now I am a student program assistant for the Student Affairs Office.
Hi, I'm Ilea. I'm a 5th year thesis student. I'm also in the student council. I work in the print lab and the architecture archive. Have my hand in a lot of hats, but hi.
Hi, my name is V. I'm a current graduate student, and I'm also on the student council, and that's kind of it.
All right. So there's a number of things for us to talk about, but maybe one of the most important things to address first is what makes our design studio culture unique here at the Cooper Union. And this will be an open question that we can hear from the faculty and from the students about. But maybe the first thing to say for those of you who are applying is we have in the second year Design 2 and then Design 3 and then Design 4 and then Thesis, but the first year goes by a different name. You've heard it already. We call it architectonics. So what does that mean? And maybe to just open this conversation up, I would ask Mirceja Veladar to tell us about architectonics.
Great. I think it works. Thank you, Michael. So architectonics, it's a very unique term to the Cooper Union School of Architecture. It's been here, I would say, when I was a student as well, under the professorship of Professor Raymond Abraham, as well as Lebius Woods. Essentially, our students are learning how to think and conceptualize through a sequence of primary elements that engage as an actual lexicon of introduction and foundations in first year, through which essentially you learn the grammar of architecture. So students will learn how to develop elements such as columns, doors, windows, skylights, but they'll also engage with material techniques, meaning that what makes our program so unique is that students are learning how to think through acts of making. We actively also, in a collaboration with architectonics, in the first year curriculum, they're taking representation classes, which means you'll be, for example, on the 3rd floor, you'll see drawings by freehand. So we're teaching our students how to think through technologies, both that are digitally advanced as well as analog advanced, how to make physical spaces through these elemental conditions, and also how to deploy them in a collaboration with shop techniques. Our students from the get-go, actually there are first year students on 3rd floor that you'll see later on today, who are literally making models out of metal, wood casting techniques. They're casting ultracal, plaster. When I first met them, now 8 weeks ago, I would argue that majority of them actually never even drew anything in a software such as Rhino or by hand or constructed a physical model before. So I think our culture, especially from the very start, embraces the joys of making. And architectonics is just the beginning step of your journey at the school.
Students, do you have something to describe to our audience about what it's like coming into the Cooper Union, that first studio, that first year, and something about that process?
So, being a second year, that first walk into Cooper is not too far a memory for me. I would say I'd actually taken the Cooper Union summer programs as a high school student before coming in here, and then just this summer, I had been a student teacher for that same program. And I think when you first walk in, you really realize that college is very different from high school. This idea of like you've taken the responsibility to then like explore architecture and design. And I think particularly with classes like architectonics, where you start to really think spatially and you start to even speak, I'd say, more in the realm of like architecture. And then even just in improving your language, you begin to understand more.
Go for it.
Okay, maybe I'll add one thing. So first year is definitely far away for me, but the one memory I have, which is maybe like super irrelevant, but I remember making plaster models and I was working with a voided sphere and thinking like, how am I going to do this? And I remember also being this very like anxious, nervous first year, and my solution came from my snack, which was a clementine. And so I used a clementine in my mold to get this kind of voided sphere. So I think very quickly you're forced to ask yourself, like, how am I going to create solutions for these problems that I'm finding and creating for myself? So, I mean, that's a fond memory for me now. And I made friends in the plaster room who were like, what are you doing? So maybe that's helpful.
Still remember your model.
Great.
When you go on your tour, you're going to see a couple things that are very unique and special to this school. The third floor is the big studio. We call it the big studio. And it is the entire floor plate, basically the size of what we're sitting here in the Great Hall, up a couple floors from here. Now, what this does is it means that every year, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and then the graduate students are in one room. So when you come into this space as a freshman, you're going to meet everybody that has gone through the program ahead of you. And it also means when you're a second year, you're going to be there as a mentor to the first year. And this kind of continued shared space of education is an incredible way to learn something like architecture. Architecture is done, practiced, and learned in a collective. It is not an individual heroic thing, even though that somehow it is portrayed in the movies. This is really something that is done collaboratively. And then right above that studio is one of the best shops: wood, metal, plaster, bronze, and then a digital fabrication shop. And kind of unparalleled, really, in schools of architecture. And to have that one floor above you totally challenges and changes the ways in which one develops as a young designer. But maybe to continue a little bit about this conversation about what makes design education here at Cooper unique, maybe I'd ask some of the faculty and then some of the students who are in different years to speak about what happens as they move through the education here and some of your thoughts on the Cooper Union.
Maybe I'll start with one thing that I think is really unusual about the design culture at Cooper, which is team teaching. All of the studios are taught by a group of 3 or 4 faculty. So you are not assigned a single professor for any of your studios, but it also really makes it a different type of teaching environment where students hear both different perspectives from all of us in the classroom with them or in the studio with them, but also they get to see us disagree about things. take different perspectives on a particular question, or even have different ideas on how to think about a particular problem or a particular part of their project that they're thinking about. So I think team teaching is one of the most unique aspects of this school, and also really unlike most other places. I've taught a lot of other places, and it seems to really be something that I miss when I'm not in that environment. So I think that's something really special about Cooper.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. I think if you know of other schools, what happens is that you get assigned a design structure, and you are with that design structure for the duration of the semester. So I agree with Ted that the fact that we co-teach here at Cooper is certainly an advantage. There's a lot of conversations, questions, and I think this allows you as a student to also develop your own position and develop critical thinking very early in your education, because you are not necessarily just following the instructions of your design professor, but you are really positioning yourself in relationship to 3 or 4 other faculty. And I think that's certainly one of the most amazing things that we have here at Cooper Union. In terms also of the sequence of design studios, I think the analysis studio in second year is also something that is unique. It happens in the second semester of the second year. And what happens is that after you have gone through architectonics and the first semester of design 2, you already have tools and a vocabulary in architecture that allows you to understand buildings and precedents in a very specific way. So the design analysis studio looks at historic precedents, projects that are important, that are canonical in terms of the lineage of architecture, and makes you question those decisions, what architects did, how form was generated, how a structure plays a role in the creation of space, tectonics, articulation of space. And I think that's also a really valuable component of your education. And I haven't seen that at any other BR program out there.
Oh, sorry. One thing that I really value and I think is really special is the setup of the big studio. Um, the first years are at the front, and then you have the second years, third years, and so on. So the people closest to you are always people who either just finished the studio you worked on or are going through the studio you just finished. So it's very easy to ask for help from the upperclassmen and also offer help to the years below you because they're like 2 meters away from you. So it's quite easy. Yeah.
Yeah, to that point, I think our size is what's also really unique. I think there's about less than 30 students in first year and 4 professors. So you do have a lot of face time with your professors, and you get a chance to really learn from them, but also your fellow classmates, and to understand that even though there's a little bit anxiety coming to college, you're not alone in that process, especially in that big studio. So understanding that everyone's kind of working together to solve the problem of architecture, or figure out where they want to situate themselves within the field. So I think, yeah, I think our size is really unique in that aspect.
Yeah, I can also say something about, how size plays out in my class. So in history survey classes, they're typically taught in lecture format, much like in this room, and it's a pretty passive form of like receiving information. But because the class size is so small, under 30, we end up having a very dynamic conversation, and the discussion is probably the most successful I've ever seen in a classroom setting. Also because they do studio together, they're together a lot of the time, they know each other very well, so they're very open with discussing the topics. So yeah.
I also want to say that from a student perspective, I think that what drew me to Cooper was definitely the small school ratio, because you do get closer, like the layout of the studio draws you to be closer with everyone. So it is easier to ask for help and not just be scared of not knowing what to do, because there's always someone who's going to relate to what you're going through. And it's always nice to fall to the upperclassmen to know that what we're going through right now is like gonna be okay, and that it does get better once the years go on.
I think also something really particular about Cooper is a very strong commitment to the craft of making, from physical models in your design studio to one-to-one prototypes or mock-ups of buildings that happens in building tech on third year. Students are really involved not only in the conceptual component of architecture and the generation of ideas and drawing, but also the act of making and the act of building. And through that, we have also had really exciting collaborations. For example, last year with Shigeru Ban Architects, building a house that I think was recently acquired by.
It's the paper log house, which Shigeru Ban, and it was recently acquired by a significant museum.
Exactly.
It's going forward.
So I think that exposes you to what it is to be an architect out there, what happens when you are practicing, what happens when you need to engage with materials in a real scale, with tectonics. And that has all happened through installations that we have done in the structures class, for a gallery here in Cooper Square, and also for a festival of architecture in Montpellier in France. Cooper Union students were able to travel there and participate in this festival, which was a really interesting experience for them. So that commitment not only to the intellectual part of architecture, but the act of making what makes a building stand, I think is also something that we value a lot here.
Yeah, maybe related to that. If you haven't heard this before, then I get to be the person that says it to you first. We as architects, we don't make buildings. Just a funny thing to say, I know, because we think about architecture as basically the built environment. What we make, what our practice is based on, is through representation, through drawings, through models, through texts, through animations, through images, through discourse. And one of the other things that I think makes the Cooper Union unique is that we have a firm commitment to the process of learning architecture through design representations that is both traditional and experimental and exploratory. And that this has actually been something that the Cooper Union has done throughout its entire history. And in a way, no matter what architecture school you go to in your future, you're going to have a class that's structured on the pedagogy of drawing and teaching design that was developed here. It has become one of the most influential design pedagogies in the world. And I say this not just like it sounds kind of braggy, but you're going to find when you go to architecture school, if it doesn't happen to be here, there'll be a conversation about the drawings of the Cooper Union. So this kind of dedication to representation is something that is both a craft and a skill that must be learned in order to have the connections with our architectural history, but also a place that is constantly pushed for experiments and new thoughts about the ways in which we design and conceive and imagine the world around us. So maybe I'd throw this to the students. Talk to us about the classes in representation, or what it's like to go through those courses, both as seminars but also in the studio as well. Or any thoughts you have about that here?
One thought I have about studio and representation is I find it really exciting that a lot of people do all of their drawings digitally, but in almost every class, you'll also have like one or two, maybe three people who decide to draw everything by hand, which is really impressive and also just makes it really exciting to see everyone pinned up in the lobby of the third floor and see a wide range of representation.
I definitely think that Cooper encourages students to try different ways of representation. For right now, my fourth year option studio, they've given us many options and different styles of how to do our drawings. I think that one thing that you don't see a lot during your first to third year is, I would say, color on your drawings. And I feel like they've encouraged a lot of color and different like textures and techniques to put on our drawings, which is very exciting because it feels more, you can definitely tell that there's different ways of showing architecture that's not just like with black and white drawings or by hand. They're definitely encouraging collage and videos and films and stuff like that. So it's very exciting.
I think now would also probably make sense to talk about the 4 semester representation sequence. Maybe especially I'll talk about my favorite in first semester when you're taking freehand, which I think we saw in the slides, where you're working with charcoal, um, practicing your eye and your hand, freehand essentially. But I just think it's a really great semester, and that's coming from someone who was very nervous about it, did not really have any art classes. Um, yeah, was just super nervous, not the best in my first semester, but it's really something that you practice. And I think that goes with all forms of representation and the importance of trying and being encouraged to try new things, which definitely happens as you go along. So maybe I'll.
Yeah, I think even when you come into the school, let's say like you were an artist or you've already done drawing, the representation classes really broadens like kind of how you think of things also spatially. Like the first semester, freehand, I also really enjoyed that class. And I came into it already liking charcoal and already liking drawing, but it introduced to me this idea of line weights, like really talking about how do you represent your idea beyond just what you're seeing. And then when you switch from such a free medium to DG, which is essentially drafting by hand, and you're being very exact and you're talking about kind of projection of a form, you then really start to see it also then forms like your studio and everything. I would say all the courses are very connected. I think maybe the first semester rep might feel like maybe unrelated, like, oh, I'm doing such like precise moves in my other classes, and this one I'm so free with charcoal. But in reality, it really does make a connection in your mind of like how you then design and how you then see things.
I can add in for the graduate students. Most likely, most graduate students have like some work experience or technical drawing experience already. The program is really great for you to question those skills that you've learned or practiced the past couple years, or if you've just had a more traditional education. And if you had like a subset of skills that you're interested in kind of exploring or experimenting with, this is a great opportunity to kind of do that here because of the like openness of the studios and the like range in which a graduate studio could operate, because you're not practicing traditional architecture anymore. You're kind of reevaluating the education you've had prior.
And another story about representation is that last year we had a quilting studio, and one of the students decided to make their plans and sections or drawings out of like quilted. So that's like one of the also the ways of like being creative and just like experimenting with different things that we get to do here at Cooper.
So one of the other amazing things about the school is where we are. We're in New York City. We're in one of the most exciting, vibrant, but also one of the most important cities historically for architecture throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. So this also means that our school, even though it is here, right, located in a specific spot, and is maybe not a traditional campus based on other schools you may be going to, we have a large extended connection into this world, into this city that we are all part of. So maybe this is like a two-part question in a way. Maybe to the faculty to talk about what it's like to teach in New York City and what are the kinds of connections and things that that then opens up for the education of an architect. And then for the students as well, and which is maybe one of the things that students here and parents here want to know about. What is it like to come here as a freshman to New York City, and what's it like to live in that in terms of that transition? So I don't know who wants to start, but yeah.
I'll just jump in. So in our third-year curriculum, we have building design integration, meaning it's the 1 year where students get to deploy and develop housing and collaboration with the structures faculty environmental technologies faculty as well as building technology faculty, meaning all hands on deck. And the students have to really develop a new design proposal and a building that is situated in usually urban contexts in a collaboration with multiple disciplines, which is equivalent to how you learn to work as an architect after you graduate as well. But the part that's extraordinary about doing this in New York City is that in the recent years in these housing studios, we've actually collaborated with local agencies, such as New York City Housing Authority, who became our partners. Our students then actively develop sites that they want us to engage with, and they get a first chance to meet the community and essentially see their proposals come to life potentially in the real world. Prior to that, we also collaborated a few years ago with Help USA, which is a non-for-profit organization where students designed, again, temporary shelters as well as permanent shelters for individuals who are homeless. Students actually were exposed to different realities of life, and they, I would argue, learned really how to be conscientious architects in the world today as well. So that's one very real example of what, as being in New York City, at the center of Bowery, can enable us to actually bring as potential collaborators and see our projects through the eyes of our students come to life.
I think being a student, an architecture student in New York City, was definitely one of the best decisions that I've made. There's so many museums, examples of good and bad buildings that you get to see on a daily basis. For example, like going building with our building technologies class, we just sometimes get to walk around New York City and see different ways of techniques and how buildings are made, how different materials go with each other. And I definitely think that New York City provides that in a great way. If you need examples and stuff, there's so many museums that you do need all 5 years to go through all of them. There's always an exposition or something very big, good going on that could always inspire you to do something related to your project in that studio for your year.
Maybe just one other thing I'll add is I just really appreciated being in New York City versus being in a campus. And I think really to emphasize the point that you're not in like a curated, like neat space. You're always walking through something and you have endless opportunities to be inspired by things, even almost like through osmosis, where you're like walking or just taking the subway to school. You're constantly absorbing things that I think do really influence your work, whether you realize it or not.
I'd also like to add that there's this huge benefit of all of the like physical materials being close to you. So whenever you need to buy something, it's like only a 2-minute trip. You just like kind of run out and immediately can get what you need, which is quite lovely. And you also have like the ease of moving around because of the subway. So when you're studying here, you may at first think you're kind of trapped in like Manhattan and it's all Manhattan. um, but you can kind of easily, like, lots of people like to go out to the beach or they go upstate. So, like, being in the city allows you to also not be trapped in the city, which is quite nice.
I agree. I think there's definitely so many resources, and even just museums, you're encouraged by your own professors to go out and interact with the city through something as direct as like an assignment. Like in humanities and in history, they'll tell you, go take a walk, take pictures of architecture, come back and tell me what you found, or like go to the Met and look at an artifact from the time period that we're currently studying.
I would say, Cooper doesn't have a traditional campus, but I always say New York City is Cooper's campus. I always encourage students to get out of studio, go watch a movie, go eat some yummy food, and, learn about the city. And I would say don't be discouraged that you have to find an apartment in New York City after your second year. I think living in another neighborhood is also really important, and getting a chance to step out of the East Village for, your upcoming years as a second, third, fourth, and fifth year is really important. Seeing Brooklyn, seeing Queens, seeing Staten Island, seeing the Bronx, getting yourself out there as a student is encouraged because, architecture should be informed by the world we live in. So yeah, and I also think, student IDs can get you into a lot of things for free. So I always encourage students to do that. But yeah, I think Cooper is in an interesting place in the city, and students should take advantage of that.
Okay, so we have a little bit more time before we open it up for questions, but maybe something that is on your mind as immediately as today is this studio test that you'll do at home. All of us, I believe, on this side of the faculty have been part of that admissions process, so we've been reviewing these for years. The students who have gone through it, I know that it's one of the things that happens in that kind of first, second, third year as you guys talk about what your studio test experience was like and everything like that. So maybe I would just open it up to the faculty and the students to talk about, I guess at one level, what was it like to do it? And then from the faculty, what is it that we're looking for when we look at these studio tests? And anybody can start.
I'll start. I definitely think that when I first saw the test, I guess I was not expecting that because coming from a public school, I didn't know what it meant to get artistic-y questions. I don't know if that's a word, but I definitely think that it really opened up, like, or kind of prepared me to what first year was going to be like. There was a lot of questions that they're not the exact same questions, but they're kind of related to how they're preparing you for what to expect from Cooper Union. And I definitely think that I really like answering these questions with a creative mindset and just not trying to be too literal is what helped me go through Cooper, because I feel like sometimes there's questions that you can't really just think about in a literal way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I definitely think that the test really prepared me for what Cooper was or is going to be like.
I think when you first look at the test, at least for me, I was kind of lost. This idea of like, what do they really want from me? Maybe what is this school really looking for? And there's also this idea of like when you're doing the studio test, you're not talking about it with anyone else. You're not really like looking at examples because this is all purely from you and it's like very raw what you are thinking. And then I think going into first year and then second year, when you see everyone else's studio test, you start to see kind of what ties in how the people got into Cooper, like a certain type of thinking, or even like, oh, like architectonics was drawing, like this basically showed us, like we understand a certain level of thinking that then was like evolved and really, really grew on into in later classes. And sometimes you also see like there's just such a wide range. Like even just you say, oh, this person came from a really artistic background and everything is so resolved. And then from others, you see that they've never drawn before, but their ideas and their core concepts are so strong.
I can speak a little bit to the process of seeing the applications. I think all of us have been on admissions. I've been on admissions twice. It is just such a super exciting experience to see the diversity of approaches to thinking about what is true are often quite open-ended questions that we present, but it is really exciting to see just little glimpses of how you all might think about a design problem. There is obviously no right answer to any of the questions. And we're obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we're not looking for any skills necessarily. We're looking for kind of the way that you think about answering a question or thinking about a question. And it is like the most fun on the first day to like start flipping through all of the studio tests and just see how our earlier discussions of like, is this the right wording for the question, or should we throw in this other variable, to see how those things kind of manifest and kind of trigger you all to think so openly about different different ways of representing something or different ways of drawing something or different ways of building something is super fun. So it should be fun for you all too. That really shows through. It can be anything you want it to be, but it is the one chance that we get to see kind of how you think.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting process, and the conversations that happened when we were reviewing these tests are also incredibly interesting. We get unexpected answers most of the times, ways of looking at things that we haven't even considered before. But just to emphasize, we're not looking for a particular set of skill that you're already bringing other than your own critical thinking and position about these questions. They are wide-ranging, as you will see, but we always see that there's a lot of care that is put in answering the text. So I mean, I really encourage, as Ted said, to have a lot of fun with it, to read carefully the questions, to answer with your own way of seeing things, your own way of seeing the world, and how do you translate that into your answers. I don't want to give away too much because it's
Quiet. Sorry.
I'll give away two things. We're looking for creative invention and conceptual nimbleness. So if you've had fine arts training from the age of 2 to the age of 18, great, but we've admitted people who have had none of that. So we're not looking for some traditional mastery, let's say, of the drawing instrument. We're looking for creative and conceptual innovation. Second thing to give away. If you've had experience with drafting software in internships and offices, also fantastic. But we're not looking for you to demonstrate that you can do technical drafting through the kind of softwares and programs that are out there. Again, that's great experience. What we're looking for is the creativity and the conceptual innovation that you come to these problems with. The problems are, and the students have already attested to this, they're phrased in ways where there is no easy answer. That's because we're actually trying to put you in a situation where there is nothing obvious about how you can address the questions. So get weird, go for it. Don't worry about if you think you've done it totally wrong, because there is no right answer to these. They are a format for us to understand how you're thinking and how you begin to visually represent, physically represent these kinds of prompts. I'm sure that even makes more questions come up in your mind, but that's okay too. There'll be time for that soon.
I think also something interesting about the test is that, we as architects, we communicate through images, through drawing, through models, through words. So this is really a way for you to communicate your own way of seeing the world through that medium. So you're not going to be there to explain the test to us. You are not going to be there to talk about it. So it's a really interesting way of you thinking about how to get through, how to communicate, how to express yourself through that.
I would also just say there's still writing prompts too, right? Yes.
Say again?
Okay, cool. Just checking. I would say also make sure that you care about those as well. Or I just remember really enjoying the writing prompts, and I think maybe also throwing in that we do have like a great HSS curriculum, an opportunity for minors and that sort of thing. So yes, the visual is always important, but also the writing is great as well.
I would also just add very briefly that each question on the test is also deeply unique in order for us to reach an audience where every single one of you could answer at least a few of them in an exceptional and, I would say, unexpected way. So again, we're not looking for, as my colleagues all said, for perfection or to give us the best skill set. We're looking into a lens through which we get to know how you think, how you're able to take a risk, and something where you also challenge what you already know. And another part that I also think is incredibly invaluable with the construction of that studio test is that for the applicants, we give you 30 days to complete it. One word of advice, do not underestimate those 30 days. The committee will know if you start application a few days before that deadline. And I know for me, what's extraordinary about that test is also that the students and faculty, including recent alumni, are all meet together. And essentially every year, both for early admissions as well as regular, we get into quite a few productive discussions trying to decide where we align and misalign as to what the new questions should be for the incoming generation of students. So it's something that's a rite of passage that's actually actively conceptualized every year by students and faculty on the admissions committee. And that's another part that's really unique about our school. Students are part of every single committee that we have at the School of Architecture.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice thing to maybe leave off on. The official way to say it is shared governance, but what that means is that there, for every single committee, from admissions to curriculum to the ways in which we do something like a faculty search or a dean search, there are students on every single committee. This school is run through a shared governance, and that sort of collaboration, we value it intensely. If you're here, you're part of it. And that's kind of I think, a unique aspect for the Cooper Union as well. So I think I've been told now is the time to open it up to questions. So are there mics out there, or yeah? So somewhere there's microphones coming for you if you have a question for us. And again, I think we have about 15 minutes for questions here. If there's something that's burning and you don't get to ask it, we'll be up on the 3rd floor and happy to talk to you there. Oh, there's a question right. Maybe 1 second just so everybody can hear.
Are there samples of the previous year's questions for the test?
So we change them every year.
But the same way as you said, the questions represent the creative way of thinking. I feel that reading past questions, it gives you sort of holistic sense of in which direction, what to expect. It takes, maybe it brings more fear, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this gets really wacky. It can be exciting to know it's going to be really out there.
I can
go for it, yeah.
Okay. I would say part of this test is also not to go for the expected, right? So if my worry would be that if you were to look at the answers for the previous test, you'll be tempted to actually answer the new questions for this year test in a similar way. And the whole purpose of this is to essentially challenge the norm and challenge what was submitted. I think a way to get to really know perhaps the school is to, for example, look through our publications such as Education of an Architect, which was actually published quite a few decades ago. But we're again, each question and prompt is typically a sentence and a half. That's how simple they are. That sentence and a half has a lot of nuance in it. And again, we're looking for ways through which you can surprise us and let us know into your world how you think and how you create. So yeah, I think for me, when I applied, which was now 1997, had I seen the answers to the questions from the previous year, it would have been very challenging to think of something novel for that year.
I wasn't asking about the answers. I was purely asking about the questions, actually.
Maybe I can jump in. But I think in a similar vein, the exercise is you're given something that you're not expecting at all, and now you have to very quickly come up with an answer. And I think part of that is designed to really see what you think. It's not supposed to be a question that you're pondering for a long time and really trying to come up with the perfect answer. I think if anything, it lends itself to to trusting your instincts a little more and not totally, I don't know, not overthinking it. Although I understand that it might be kind of frustrating to not see samples, but know that no one has ever seen samples. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But maybe because we do change them every year. I am actually curious. We threw this to one of the students. What was the question that you had when you did the home test and you went, what?
Create an eclipse. I didn't know if I was supposed to take the moon and the sun and just like combine them, but it was very confusing. I just didn't know what to do, but I did something and here I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you guys offer any like
Hello.
exchange? Sorry.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you guys offer any like exchange years, or do any of your students go abroad?
I can talk for that. I did a summer abroad in France for a Fontainebleau program. Basically, we don't have a program right now within the school. Well, we have a program that you can go to Denmark for a year, but that would require you to take like a year off to go there. There is a couple other programs that the school offers, like the Fontainebleau program. It's a summer program. Basically, you go to France and you study in a chateau, which is a castle, in the south of France for about a month and a half or so. And you create some amazing projects there with like a group of other students. It's like a architecture and music combined program. But yeah, there's no semester abroad, but more like programs that you can do within the school.
Could add briefly and say, although we don't have an official exchange program with another institution, our studios, in some cases are another. For example, this semester, second year, went to Boston to a field trip, essentially to visit their site and meet the local community and architects. Last year, a similar trip happened to Toronto, where students went to Canada. I'm looking at Eamon, because he happens to be from there. And I think that was, from what I heard, a productive session. And then we have separately, our students typically travel throughout the summer in order to keep up with the 5-year professionally accredited NAB degree for the bachelor's school, a 5-year degree program. We have an array of travel grants and opportunities that our students apply for, and essentially they run off into locations that go across the world. We have students who did research projects in Dubai this summer, including Latin America. A few are on the panel. I know Ilya went to Austria this summer with 2 other classmates, and they come back and they have an exhibition of their work. They have research that they spend 3 months working on, but I think you guys should speak about those opportunities as well.
Yep, we have those, and it's great. we had a great time. I mean, I think it's also nice because these grants force you to like come up with a specific question and have something really in mind when you go visit these places and do research. So we're still kind of testing and doing experiments based off of the research we did, and we'll have our exhibition in early February. So it's really quite a long process, but we had a great time.
Afternoon. I have a question both for the students and the faculty. I wanted to know from the students, coming into the school, did you have a different mindset, a concept of what Cooper Union would have been like? And as students, how did that change for you coming down the line? And for the faculty, very interesting as parents, we would like to know, how do you see the students coming in as opposed to a few years in and graduating, whether it's bachelor's or master's, their mindset coming out into the real world?
I guess coming into Cooper Union, I'd only really known like this school was more conceptual than other architecture schools I had applied to, and that was really what drew me to Cooper. In addition to like the small student body, I suppose I came in maybe with a very traditional and almost stereotypical sense of architecture of like making buildings and like building a house, that type of idea. And right now, as a second year, I'm thinking more theoretical, more in terms of like the conditions of a space, or even just like the goal, or like architecture is also not as narrowed as you think. Like an architect can become so many different things. It's such a broad major. Like I have friends I know who have graduated and then now they're doing more so like design. I have another one who's looking more at like landscape architecture. I think it really broadens your idea of what architecture is and what you can study and what you can end up doing.
Yeah, I'll just say it's always an incredible thing to go to graduation and to see a student who you've followed for 5 years. It's another thing about a small school of this size. You'll be on a student's reviews for every year, and you'll see the same person keep changing, maturing, growing into the architect that they're going to be, into the person that they're becoming throughout these 5 years. And also it's very true. Architecture is in many ways also a kind of generalist education. Many people do very different things when they graduate. Some, yes, work as architects, work in an office, but other people go into filmmaking. One of our graduates now is running Frank Ocean's design team. Others go into academia. Others become, go into the business side. Like there's so many different things that can happen from here, and there's also a huge kind of stream of graduates from the Cooper Union who have become massively influential within the design world at large. Liz Diller, who has a firm, Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, graduate of the Cooper Union, former faculty of the Cooper Union, the High Line, Alice Tilly Hall, Juilliard School. I mean, this is enmeshed within the world in a very deep manner. Um, Thank you for the question.
Oh, hello. My question is, I believe there was a mentioning earlier about like students scrambling to find like apartments and housing. Is um, student housing something that's guaranteed, or is it more common for students to like commute?
The dorms are guaranteed for freshman year. So everybody comes in their first year. The dorms are across the street. I think it's part of the tour to see where they are today. So freshman year, all of that's guaranteed. Sophomore year on, students find apartments. I don't know if the students want to talk about finding an apartment in New York City is never an easy thing, just to say it if you don't know that already. But the students want to describe that experience?
So yeah, it is honestly a bit difficult to do while you are studying, but the good thing is everyone else is also doing it. Um, I would say in my class, about 50% of my class lives in the East Village and has an apartment there, and everyone else is generally in Brooklyn or Queens. Um, it's a lot easier if your parents are from New York or New Jersey because a lot of the big corporate landlords in the East Village will only take like parental guarantors if they are from New York or New Jersey. But if you go farther out into like Brooklyn and Queens and you find smaller landlords, you'll have cheaper rent and they will also be more willing to like let things slide and stuff. Like I'm international, though my landlord just kind of let it happen, which is quite nice. But I would recommend to avoid Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and whatever. I do hear about people getting scammed out of a lot of money using those platforms. I would stick to something like Street Easy, and I would not pay anyone until you see an apartment in person.
Always good advice. Just to say it how I've seen it happen too. Usually at some point there during the first year, a group, a crew of people get together. So it is, what's super common is it's 3, 4, 5 people finding a place together. And never done by yourself, or not never done, okay. Usually not done by oneself. And there are people here at Cooper that help with setting up those relationships and getting started with that.
I would also say what's unique when you're in that dorm the first year, I believe that you're paired up in an unexpected manner with the disciplines of engineering and art, right? So you could end up with a roommate that is going to the engineering school, as well as one from art, as well as two from architecture school, and you realize really quickly the importance of learning how to manage time through each other's curriculums. And then after first year, you decide who you want to live with more carefully, and that matches your work schedule and opportunities. So if you're really into art and architecture, you get to, I guess, have an apartment or live with somebody who's perhaps into those disciplines. But I think it's structuring your experience at the school and giving you these opportunities that are kind of one step at a time, giving you choices.
So as a current finger eight student, freshman, what is the advice you would give us as a freshman, current freshman right now, for your as a student coming from a student? And my other question would be, are there any really like internships, because I'm struggling trying to find a job after I graduated from high school, and I've been trying to look for jobs, but nobody has really been hiring me. So that's my questions.
At least for me, after my first year, I actually had professors reach out to me in terms of like work opportunities, especially if you're always in class and you work hard, it pays off. They recognize your effort and they see your work. And then also beyond that, the work you're doing in school can then go to a portfolio, and then you can also apply to internships. And Cooper really helps with helping you find like people that you can work for, or just like also just finding places that you can like align with your goal.
We also have a career center that helps you get jobs while in school or outside of school. So I definitely think that finding a job, um, it's not, I wouldn't say easy, but there's definitely resources that help you make it easy.
Just echoing off of that, we have things like the career fair, which is where you get to like present your portfolio to a bunch of firms that come. That's how I got my internship last summer. And there's also a lot of opportunities to work within Cooper, like one of my favorites being the architecture archive. So there's many ways and many different job options and ways to make money.
I will also say that an advice for freshmen would be that your first year, try to get used to the school before trying to jump into getting a job. Um, I feel like that's one of the most common questions that we get from freshmen. It's like, how can I get a job? Where can I get a job? And it's just like, maybe get used to or time management, because it can get very fast very quickly, and then you can get very frustrated with having to do all your work and also a job and then not knowing how to handle that. So I definitely think that the advice is first like accommodate to Cooper and then get a job.
I definitely agree with that. I came into Cooper with a job that I had since high school, and I actually had to take a pretty decent time off because you're unfamiliar with the workload. It's your first time studying architecture, maybe your first time in college. You don't really know how you can take the work just yet. So taking that year to just acclimate yourself to Cooper and to the workload, I think is really good.
I would also say the faculty that we have at the school, they all have different forms of practices, and they're usually the best resource or the first resource, I would argue, to if a student reaches out to them, if they might not, if they have an opening or not, they'll definitely connect you with other individuals in the city that they're familiar with in their practice. We also have portfolio training sessions, faculty advisors who work with students on those opportunities as well. So I think there's different orbits or kind of thresholds through which our students are able to engage in work opportunities.
So unfortunately, we have to wrap up because the tours have a kind of schedule that they're on. But again, all of us are going to be up on the third floor. There'll be some refreshments and things to eat and drink, and we can chat informally about anything you need to talk about. So, Amy, do you need to, yeah? But thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Cooper Union.
Thank you so much. You guys were wonderful. Students, you continue to impress me. Okay, hold on one second. Please don't leave. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the students, you have a little letter on your name tag, an A or a B in the upper left. That will determine your tour group. So group B, you guys are going to stay seated for right now because we're going to take you up to the reception, and we're actually going to break out group A first to do tours with our lovely students who will be waving Peter Cooper heads at you. So group A, if this aisle right here, if you could line up, and we're going to break you up into groups, certain amount of you per group. So this aisle right here, all the way to the right, Monica and our students are going to organize you into groups.